All right, Nathan Jennison here of the Mortgage Architects, and I have the pleasure of speaking with Samantha Wise, who's owner and realtor of the W Group, and she's one of the most exceptional real estate agents I have the pleasure of working with on a consistent basis. And so, yeah, I'm excited, Samantha, to have you here, and we are going to talk today about buyer reluctance and whether or not is now a good time to buy a home. That's what I keep hearing. What are your thoughts on this?
I absolutely think it's a good time to buy a home. Back in 2021, we were seeing it where buyers weren't having the opportunity to negotiate or just taking a lot of risk walking into a house, not knowing anything about it. That's not what we're seeing right now. We're getting a lot of sellers' concessions. We're getting money off of the purchase price. Buyers are walking in with equity, which is the best position for them to be in.
Yeah, that's huge. I remember in 2021, people were buying houses without even having a chance to see them. They would hit the market and they're like, we're making a contract offer. And it's like, wait, have you seen the property?
People weren't walking in. Yeah, absolutely. Which was wild. It was crazy. It's so much risk.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the benefits actually of a slow market is there's a little more inventory to choose from. You have the ability to go see it, find the right home. And it's interesting because buyers get scared in slower markets and there's fewer buyers out there. But it's actually the best time to shop because that's when sellers are willing to negotiate, offer seller concessions. There's a lot that happens there. And in terms of, concessions, you're one of the best agents I work with in terms of negotiating those. What would you say is the percentage of contracts that you negotiate seller concessions on?
95% of them, I would say. Almost every
95%.
Yeah.
Almost every contract I see of yours has a seller concession on it.
Yes.
And for those that are listening to it, not knowing what a seller concession is, can you explain to us what that is?
A seller's concession is an amount that is given from the seller that can be used towards buyer's closing costs, rate buy downs, or agent fees. So whichever you prefer. I would say, Nathan, you and I work pretty well together to make sure that we're working optimally for our buyer to make sure that seller's concession is used in their best interest.
Yeah, for sure. And what's interesting about it too is that the temporary rate buy downs, which we do a lot of together, Colorado is actually #1 in the nation for temporary rate buy downs. And for those that are like, what the heck is that? Basically means that you have a lower monthly payment starting off for the first couple years, depending on what plan you go with. And so you get a lower, an easier way of getting into a property that you can adjust to when to offset some of the fact that rates are a little bit higher than people would like. So,
and I think that's where they go to speak too. You're marrying the house, you're dating the interest rate, and it gives these buyers the opportunity to purchase a house that they really, really want at a mortgage rate, and then they have the opportunity to refi. With FHA loans, and as you know, Nathan, when we're getting those temporary buy downs, and if interest rates drop, and they're able to refi, they still get to utilize that temporary buy down. They get to still use that money if there's any money left over, and they could roll that over again. Like that's huge.
Yeah, and that's the best thing about it is that they get the full impact of that sort of concession that you negotiate. They're not leaving any money on the table. So That's awesome.
It's great.
And it's interesting too, because there's been some talk about like, hey, it's better to rent than buy. And, in terms of just overall saving money, because if I buy a home, I got a larger payment and I don't want to be house poor. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, we did that one deal together. We had those clients, if you remember, they were renting. It was their first time home. They were super nervous, asked a lot of questions. I think we supported them overall together really, really well. But remember, if you remember correctly, we get them 15,000 off of asking. We got 70,000 in inspection items completed, and then they walked in with 70,000 in equity. Oh, and we got them their rate buy down. I totally forgot.
Yeah, that's right. That was the icing on the cake in the midst of all of it. That was absolutely crazy. And the reality too that's interesting about it is they would have spent so much on rent just over the course of just even a year difference while that property would go up in price. And instead, because of the way you negotiated that, they walked in with $70,000 of equity, which, I mean, no interest rate difference is going to make up that, that amount of difference and years of paying a higher interest rate. So that makes a big, that's a big impact.
I think it really just speaks to, the trust that they had in us and, just really letting them share with us just kind of their personal wants and their needs and where they really, really needed to go. And just having us, on their team and being able to, encourage them and point them in the right direction and having, a team that really advocates for you and in your best interest. I think it's the best way.
And that is a really interesting point, because I see a lot of real estate agents that approach they approach an offer and they approach it as a transaction as opposed to a relationship. And in real estate, when you're looking to buy, the biggest purchase you've ever done or buying a home, who you have on your team really matters. And so it reminds me of that deal that we did where, we worked together on that contract in terms of getting them under contract. There was a competing offer. Do you remember with that one that we were talking about?
Yeah, there were 6. We were competing with 6 offers.
Yeah.
Those clients were great. We worked together on that one. We were both in communication with the listing agent. We weren't even the highest offer, and they took our offer. And I think it was just because of the persistence, the communication that you and I both had on that transaction. And again, just really advocating, with our clients. I think that's how we won that deal.
Yeah. In fact, the listing agent was talking to me after we won that contract, and she was saying how much she was impressed by you and how you communicated throughout that process. And it really stood out. And especially how we were doing that as a team. Like, you sent the contract, I followed up on it immediately. And then the other thing too that I find that's interesting is a lot of agents really complain about the lending side. They can never contact the lender. They can't get a hold of them. And she was really impressed because we even had our calendar link on that presentation. So she, at any point throughout, the process, she could just schedule directly on my calendar if she was at all concerned about whether or not she'd be able to get a hold of me. She'd never seen that before. So
I think it's great. And I can advocate for you guys as well. I mean, I wouldn't work with a lending team, if I didn't have them equally on my side and able to get a hold of them. We do this together. And if I'm not able to do that, then it's not a team I'm going to work with. And Mortgage Architects definitely does that.
Yep, that's huge. And not only that too, but it's not only just getting somebody under contract on the home that they really want, but it's also that support throughout the process. And first time home buyers are, always a classic example of having a lot of feelings going through that process, right? There's a lot of anxiety, but it's really true of anybody that's purchasing a home. I mean, and that's one of the things that I've seen you do time and time again is how closely you work with buyers and helping them through that process, knowing what to expect. I mean, that's something that is one of the things that really makes you stand out.
Yeah, I like to really take my time in my buyer consultations. I really love to learn about my clients, their motivations, what their intentions are. Is this a 5-year plan? Is this a 10-year plan? We're going to live in this house for the rest of our lives. We only have X amount of dollars to put down. We can only afford this much in a payment. And I want to hear them out. I want to make sure that I am advocating for them. So I know going in, like, hey, we have to walk in at this purchase price. We have to have this much in seller's concessions. I mean, being able to talk to you guys, knowing, hey, Nathan and team, I want to get them a 3-2-1 on this amount. How much do I need? Like, let me know. I need to put this in there. And then kind of working together and tag teaming on that piece where it's, we're talking about that payment. And it's like, is this comfortable for you guys? And they're gung ho and they're ready to go and they have much more excitement. I can say my team, we want this to be a seamless and fun, exciting process for our buyers. It shouldn't be stressful. It should be exciting. Like, this is the biggest purchase of their life. They should be thrilled.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And one other note that's kind of goes right along with that is the fact that you are always telling people, you're shooting them straight, right? Like, you're very down to earth. You're saying, hey, this is what it is that you're seeing. If you see a property that you don't think is a right fit or that you see problems with, you're telling them that up front. And so they're able to make decisions from an informed standpoint. You're not just trying to get them under contract to get the deal done, but you're helping them see where the opportunities are in a way that is really remarkable.
Thank you. Yeah, I would say I'm a very honest, transparent, and determined person.
I can definitely vouch for that. So many stories of you working at crazy hours and different locations where it's just like, wait, you're in a hospital room and what you're working? So
yes, very
classic.
true.
Again, make a good team. So, well, definitely, what I would like to say is that, if there's anybody that's watching this that's looking to purchase and or to sell too, I mean, because you list homes as well and you do an incredible job with that. But definitely reach out to us, because what we're going to talk to you and we're going to give you real information, not based on hypotheticals, but we're going to give you information so that you can make the best decisions for you and your situation. Is there anything else that you wanted to say?
Yeah, please reach out. As many questions. I love questions. I love answering questions. And I think what's wrong is our buyers aren't educated. So ask away. Knowledge is power. So let us help you.
Yeah, that's very true. In fact, I tell customers to even reach out to me on nights and weekends, because ultimately when you're feeling anxious about something, it doesn't necessarily always fall within business hours, right? And so
Right.
that matters to us, to be able to be available and to be able to help people through that, so they don't lose their weekend being worried sick about something that we can take 5 or 10 minutes to answer for them. So
Yeah, I'm open 24 hours. That's the job I signed up for.
me too. All right. Well, we look forward to hearing from you, Samantha. Thank you so much for a great conversation. And reach out to us anytime.
Yeah,
All right.
thank you so much.
Absolutely. We'll go throw up some licensing information, and we'll see you then.